approximately?
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to echo the words of Brett and give you a cordial welcome, our students, their teachers, our staff members, work associates of the Moore family, psychologist Mrs. Ryan, and the Moore family, and to Mr. and Mrs. Arthur Moores, and Jane. For a time we weren't sure we were going to be having this program today, for Mr. Moore's dad passed away last Thursday. But one thing I've observed over the last several months is that the presence of the living God in the Moore's family life. This has been so evident. This has sustained them during this very difficult period of time. It's been really such an encouragement to me personally, and I know to so many of us. So it's a privilege having you all with us today, and certainly the weather is very positive and is with us. Last week I was interviewed by a reporter from the Lowell Sun, and he asked me several questions, and two come to mind right now. The first question was, who's responsible for this assembly on Monday? And I was thinking about the members of our committee who are planning this. Mrs. Guarino is the chairperson, Mrs. Brzee, and Mr. Geller. Teachers in grade 5, Mrs. Durant, Mrs. Lospinato, and Mrs. Hickey. Thought about our student representatives who are participating in this program today. And I thought, and I said, there wasn't any one person who was responsible for today. It's sort of an outpouring of spirit and just compassion and love from the Westland community. And I'm very proud to be a part of it. Second question that I am going to refer to that comes to mind that I was asked, what is so very special about Cyndi? So I think you will see unfolded in the next several minutes some of the things that made Cyndi very special. You're going to see through poetry, artwork, music, which is the universal language of all mankind, and also through reading. At that point, I'm going to ask one of our 5th graders, who's a member of this committee, Aaron Bates, if you will share some of your thoughts. Aaron?
In remembrance of Cyndi. For those of you who do not know Cyndi, I'll tell you a little about her. Cyndi was a very kind and generous person. She always thought of others first. If someone had a problem, she was there to help. She always had a friendly smile that would make everyone around her happy. These are some of the reasons we are here today to honor her. For the past few months, a committee of 4 student representatives, Frank Conway, Michael Sablone, John Sheehy, and myself, and 6 staff representatives, Mrs. Lospinato, Mrs. Durant, Mr. Noy, Mr. Geller, Mrs. Brzee, and Chairperson Mrs. Guarino, have been working to raise money for the Cynthia Ann Ward Memorial Fund. With your help and support, we were able to raise enough money to purchase a plaque in memory of Cyndi, and to establish the Cynthia Ann Moore's Good Citizenship Award. Each year, a 5th grader will be chosen by the students and the teachers to receive a $50 savings bond, and will have their name placed on the Good Citizenship plaque. On behalf of the committee, I would like to thank all of you for your contributions in helping us to honor Cyndi.
Thank you, Aaron. Mrs. Bernard? John is going to share this.
A lifetime. She was singing, dancing, laughing, and poetry so sweet. A little added friendship to all that she should meet. An added bit of wisdom with a friend so closely shared. A helping hand to others because she really cared. How much we all are saddened by the loss of one so dear. Yet mustn't we be glad too, for we have known her here. Miss Cindy's up in heaven now, and with the angels singing praises, and a voice still sweeter while the bells continue ringing. Yes, for each of us who knew her, she has added a dimension that was of memories that stay with us, a positive extension. Please help us, God, to do our best with love and friendship true, to fill each day with kindness towards others as to you.
I'm going to ask the captain of the Westland School Safety Patrol, Michael Sablon, to come forward, please. Michael is charged with the responsibility of unveiling the plaque, which is going to be placed in the lobby at some point this week. Michael?
On behalf of the committee, I would like to present you with the Cynthia Ann Moore's Memorial Plaque. Says Cynthia Ann Moore's, August 30th, 1976 to October 29th, 1986. A helping hand to others because she really cared.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Redding if she'll come forward, please. Mrs. Redding is our art specialist at Westland School. I'll just mention the fact that last fall, Mrs. Redding approached me and said that she and a group of students thought it would be appropriate to assemble a quilt which would kind of depict some of the memories that the boys and girls in the 5th grade, her classmates, had of Cyndi. Some of the things that interested her the most, some of the hobbies, some of her great strengths. I thought they could depict this, and they certainly did. So a number of them drew designs, and a number of them worked after school for several weeks. They, along with Mrs. Redding and Mrs. Kathy Arsenault and Mrs. Esther McDonald, they put together this quilt, which will be presented to Mr. and Mrs. Moore's. And Mrs. Redding just has a few words that she'd like to say, but before she will say this, for those boys and girls whose designs are represented on this quilt, would you please stand for a moment? For those boys and girls who worked after school in putting this together, would you please stand? Mrs. Redding, would you like to say a few words?
I'd just like to say that I'm sure that the feelings and the memories represented in this quilt will last in the hearts of those who need it forever.
Mentioned previously that when the Cyndi Wars Memorial Fund was started, there was a groundswell of support. The student committee members were assembled for some weeks in the lobby. All of you sitting out there in some way made contributions. There were pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, dollars from students and from staff and from family members and from outsiders, people who just read about it in the paper. So this has totaled $1,125. After the bill has been paid for the plaque, there will be sufficient funds in this memorial fund until the year 2017, which I figured out today is 30 years from now. This means that for the next 30 years, at least at Westland School, a good citizenship will be awarded to a deserving fifth grader. The recipient will receive a $50 United States savings bond. Back in the fall, when the planning began, our student representatives gathered together and they thought, we agreed, the student representatives and also the members of our committee, that we should have a good citizenship award. They established the criteria. 2 weeks ago today, I visited each fifth grade classroom, and in each classroom there was a poster, and we reviewed together the criteria which was established. The criteria is as follows. The fifth grader who would receive this award would have the following characteristics. That person would be courteous, respectful to others, not only adults but to the fellow classmates, good attendance. That person does not have to have perfect attendance, good grades, but not all A's. The most important ingredient is that that individual should give his or her best effort. And that's what's really significant, to give their best. And respecting property and demonstrating leadership qualities. I then told them that after they had a chance to reflect upon this, I would be back on Friday, the 22nd day of May, and there would be a secret ballot. And I did. I went to each of the fifth grade classes, the three of them, and by secret ballot, they selected a classmate who typified, in their minds, the person who most nearly resembled that individual that we discussed. Following the seal, and I received sealed envelopes and proceeded to assemble the adult members of the committee, the three teachers and the other members. We very carefully reviewed, examined, looked them over, and what was very evident to us, that there was a mandate from the fifth grade students. This means that there was one person who obviously was the one that they felt most nearly depicted this individual. What we felt as a committee was this: we were most impressed with those who received the sixth highest total of votes. Because any one of these six we felt just characterized the qualifications, just very much so. Really, the students were so astute in their voting. We were so impressed by this. So I'm going to ask at this time if Mr. and Mrs. Moores would come forward, and Janie at this time. I'm going to ask them if they will make the presentation of the first Cynthia Ann Moore's Good Citizenship Award. And at this point, this is going to be a a $50 United States savings bond. And I'm going to ask at this time if Aaron Bates will come forward. We have a plaque which will be placed below this plaque here. Cynthia Ann Moores, August 30th, 1976 to October 29th, 1986. Citizenship Award for 1987. Aaron Michael Bates' name is on this plaque. This will be placed on the wall. We can certainly look forward to 30 years of awarding these. I'm not saying I will be the awarder, but we have many years because of this fund. We're going to close our program with a very appropriate musical selection. And if you will share at this point, please, Mrs. Burnett. very happy to see that so many parents and other guests, in addition to the family, were here to share with us today. It's a very, very special day. We're going to assemble. We're going to go back to our classrooms. I'd like to have it one row at a time, beginning with Mrs. Cutcliffe's class, one class at a time in a very orderly fashion. Thank you. It's a very meaningful day, and I appreciate your presence today.
I love you.
When Dad died, I tried to keep here.